While they may not be the splashiest moves the Seahawks have made during this free agency period, Mike McDonald and John Schneider are boosting the secondary with an emphasis on special teams. I'm going to be taking a close look here on our Blue Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks.
You are Locked On Seahawks, your daily Seattle Seahawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, 12. This is Corbin Smith, host of the Locked On Seahawks podcast, your daily Seahawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. A special thanks to all the 12s who are listening in, and thank you, as always, for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. Whether you are listening in from Snohomish, Washington, or down in Oxford, Mississippi, congratulations to the Rebels for winning their NCAA tournament game today. A special thanks to each and every one of you. The Seahawks have slowed down their free agent signings to an extent, but there were a few additions that were announced in the last 48 hours in the secondary and a familiar name at the receiver position as well. I'm going to be taking a dive into those latest free agent signings. And then I'm going to go back to the NFL draft. This is going to be a two-parter looking at priority positions for the Seahawks on day 2 with 5 selections in the second and third round. Today, it's going to be all about the edge defenders, guards, got to have the guards in there, and, of course, running backs, positions that could be premium spots in terms of talent and depth in this year's draft in day 2. Jam-packed episode coming your way, courtesy of Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Now for your lead story here on our Blue Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks. Fans have been upset about the fact the Seahawks have yet to sign another guard to bolster their interior offensive line, but the team has been active in the secondary, adding depth at cornerback and safety. And these are players that are not just special teamers. Obviously, that's going to be a big component here. But Shemar Jean-Charles, who previously played for the New Orleans Saints and started his career in Green Bay, signed to a one-year deal. And D'Anthony Bell today was announced by Jordan Schultz, NFL insider, as a one-year deal coming to the Seahawks after spending the last 3 years in Cleveland. When you look at these two players, not a lot of defensive experience in regular season games. Jean-Charles in Green Bay was primarily a special teams guy last year. He got his opportunity to play quite a few snaps on defense for the Saints and actually had his first career interception, had a few pass breakups, was involved in the run game as well. I would view him as a slot corner based on his size, but he's actually primarily been a boundary corner at under 5'11", under 195 pounds. He has been an outside corner dating back to his time at Appalachian State. So this is a player who you consider who Seattle has lost so far this offseason. Artie Burns going to the Miami Dolphins, Trey Brown going to the San Francisco 49ers. Seattle needed to replenish their depth at the boundary position. And Jean-Charles is a guy that can give them that flexibility. They aren't as dead set on having the taller, long-armed corners as they were during the Pete Carroll era under Mike McDonald. So this move made a lot of sense, especially when considering that Jean-Charles has been one of the better kick and punt coverage players for the New Orleans Saints the last couple of years. And in Green Bay, he was a valuable special teamers as well, had a brief cup of tea with the San Francisco 49ers, but everywhere he has been a rock-solid special teams player. And he showed last year in his first extended action on defense for New Orleans that he's more than capable of being able to step in and play snaps if called upon at a high level. And so, again, Seattle lost Burns and Brown in free agency. I think the cornerback position is one to look out at potentially even on day 2. But I think day 3, most certainly, they're going to be looking for depth at that position, particularly on the boundary. But Charles gives them a player that they can plug in right now that now has enough experience against NFL competition that there's going to be some comfort level there, while you know that he's going to be a really rock-solid special teams player. At the safety position, I'm really excited about this kid. The more that I've learned, I need to go and watch some more film. But D'Anthony Bell visited the Seahawks a little over a week ago, and so this was not one of those situations where the Seahawks met with the player, didn't let him leave without a contract. He left without a contract, and then eventually the two sides were able to work it out. He's 6'1", 211 pounds. So this is a good size safety. You look at the pictures of this guy, he is built like a small linebacker, a little bit small maybe for that type of comparison, but he's a thick, powerful safety that can move pretty well. He's played in the box. He's played as a deep safety, and he's got more experience on defense than what Gene Charles does in Cleveland from 2 years ago when he started 4 games for the Browns and produced a couple of interceptions, had 3 pass breakups, and a forced fumble, did not allow a touchdown. He actually had a rock-solid season playing almost 300 defensive snaps for Cleveland. You would think with the way that he performed that year, the Browns would have tried to find a way to at least have a situational role carved out for him, but he didn't even get 100 defensive snaps last year for Cleveland, was not quite as effective in the limited snaps that he had, but still made a lot of tackles, didn't give up a touchdown in coverage, limited reps that he had. He had 11 tackles on special teams, though. So again, this is another guy. When you consider that Artie Burns played some special teams, Trey Brown played some special teams, and in the safety position, Kayvon Wallace was one of their top special teams players before he got hurt middle of the season. Rayshon Jenkins was playing as the third safety in the second half of the year with Kobe Bryant moving into the starting lineup. There are some spots that need to be filled in those kick and punt coverage roles as well as the rest of the special teams. And D'Anthony Bell is a player that most certainly is proven coming out of West Florida. Matt Gotel also coming from that school, Seahawks defensive tackle. This is a school that had never had a player make an NFL team until D'Anthony Bell did it as an undrafted rookie for Cleveland in 2022. So he's already blown away all expectations coming from a Division II school, but he is a really good special teams player. And one of the things that stood out with the report from Jordan Schultz today was that there were a lot of other teams interested. Obviously, Bell was making rounds because he had a week between his visit and when he ultimately signed with the Seahawks. But this is a player who ended up taking this option in Seattle because he was intrigued by the possibility to be the third safety. And Seattle is going to need that, barring drafting a safety early, maybe Nick Emanuwari at pick 18. If that happens, that changes things. You have to audible sometimes in the draft, but there is the opportunity there now for D'Anthony Bell to be able to play some snaps on defense that, like he did in Cleveland, as a situational safety that does have some positional flexibility at both spots, that interchangeability that Mike McDonald wants. He has been productive when he's gotten those chances in Cleveland. So this could be that real opportunity on a defense that likes to use 3 safety looks with interchangeable players where he could really carve out a role on defense. As for the other signing that was announced today, Seattle did not get Michael Gallup coming out of retirement. He opted to go to the Commanders, but another former state of Washington college standout. We just saw Cooper Kupp, Eastern Washington alum, coming to the Seahawks on a 3-year deal. River Cracraft, the pride of Washington State. He's hung around in the NFL. He's had a lot of time on practice squads, hasn't been overly productive in regular season games, but this guy caught everything that was thrown to him playing for the Cougars. The Seahawks right now, they're just looking for anyone that can come in and potentially push the receivers they already have on the roster. Cracraft's still a guy that can do a lot of damage out of the slot. He's played on the outside before, has tried to do some things on special teams. That's what's helped him stick around as long as he has. So this is another exciting addition for Washington fans who enjoy the homegrown players. Cracraft coming to Seattle and signing a contract. It was announced by the team today. I'm fascinated to see where he ends up fitting in because he's always been a guy that I felt like there should have been a better opportunity with the production that he had at Washington State for him to be able to carve out a role as an offensive player in the NFL. It just has not happened, most recently playing for the Miami Dolphins. We'll see if this time he's able to find a way to stick around with the Seattle Seahawks. When I come back, we are going to switch gears from free agency signings to the NFL draft. The Seahawks have 5 picks on day 2 in the second and third round after trading Geno Smith and DK Metcalf. What positions should be priority positions based on talent and depth for John Schneider and company? I'm going to look at 3 of those position groups that top my list. That'll be coming up next here on our Blue Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks. This episode is brought your way by Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise. at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more, experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. If you need help with a marketing campaign, Upwork can connect you with a freelance expert who delivered incredible results. Posting a job is free and simple, and within a day, you'll have multiple qualified candidates to choose from. Instead of hiring full-time, Upwork helps find affordable top-tier freelancers to scale business efficiency. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's Upwork, UPWORK.com, Upwork.com, to connect with top talent and grow your business today. This episode is also brought your way by Game Time. Imagine watching your favorite team live, feeling the energy of the crowd, and witnessing unforgettable moments. There's nothing like experiencing a big game in person, and getting tickets shouldn't be stressful. That's where Game Time comes in, making it easier than ever to grab last-minute seats at unbeatable prices. With Game Time picks, curation makes it easy to find better value for tickets to sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. I just checked the Game Time app before the show, and there are still some really good deals on huge matchups at Climate Pledge Arena coming up in round 2 of the college basketball tournament. The lowest price guarantee allows you to find the best price. If Game Time is beat out by another company, they will credit you 110% of the difference, and they offer seat views before you buy, so make sure that you get the right seat, the right view. There's no surprise fees. And that lowest price guarantee allows you to book with total confidence. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time by downloading the Game Time app, creating an account, and using the code LOCKEDINNFL for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Welcome back to the Locked On Seahawks podcast. Blue Friday edition. I'm your host, Corbin Smith. A special thanks to all the 12s who are tuning in, and thank you, as always, for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it. It might be hard to believe, but the NFL draft, we are only a few days away from it being officially a month away on the calendar. It's going to get here in the blink of an eye, and the Seahawks are loaded up with picks on day 2 because of the trades that they made. DK Metcalf, Geno Smith getting a 3rd and 2nd round pick there. The Seahawks have 5 picks in the first 92, so 4 day 2 picks. I've been saying 5, it's 4. They have pick 18 in the first round. But knowing John Schneider, the way that he likes to move around the board, wouldn't be shocked to see this turn into a situation where Seattle ends up getting another pick on day 2 with moving around the board, maybe even moving down from pick number 18 to get another 3rd round pick and really try to feast on day 2. Nonetheless, they've got those 4 picks, the quartet of picks the Seahawks have on day 2. It is going to be a critical 2 rounds for John Schneider as he continues to try to rebuild this roster. I know they don't like the word rebuild. They look at it as a situation where they are just reloading, but they are trying to overhaul, particularly the offensive side of the football. This is going to be a key draft in those day 2 rounds to really hit on as many of these picks as possible. The good news is there are a number of positions that are deep and have a lot of talent that should have plenty of good players available there. And this should get Seattle fans most excited, especially, we're going to talk about this later in the show. There's a reason why there's kind of a depressed mood for Seahawks fans right now when it comes to the interior of the offensive line. I'll get to why fans are frustrated in a little bit, but I want to give you a reason for optimism. And it's because this is a pretty good guard class, and I think there is a lot of really good day 2 talent for John Schneider to be able to draft at that position. And so when you're looking at the guard spot right now, as far as day 2, 2nd and 3rd round potential picks, Donovan Jackson coming in at the top of my list right now. I actually have a late 1st round grade on him, but I think there's a really good chance, because he's a guard at the next level, that he ends up slipping down into the early to mid 2nd round. And Jackson showed off his athletic chops last year by playing the tackle position, with Josh Simmons being sidelined for Ohio State with a significant injury. They had to plug him in at the left tackle position. His first game there really struggled against Penn State, and then he figured things out. But that athletic profile, being able to slide out in left tackle, going against top Big Ten competition, helping Ohio State win the national championship, he's got the athletic traits to play in Clint Kubiak's system. He is a really sound zone blocker in the run game. I think this is an excellent potential pick for the Seahawks. Tate Ratledge from Georgia is another player that might sneak into round one because he was known more as a mauler at Georgia. And then he went to the combine and posted a 9.98 out of 10 relative athletic score. Just blew things up at Lucas Oil Stadium, had a phenomenal workout. I think that he is a player that projects to play in either scheme, whether it's zone or gap oriented. He's the rare guy that can do both because of his athleticism, his nastiness, his power in the trenches. He would certainly be a fun guy to bring in to anchor this Seattle Seahawks interior offensive line. Those two guys, to me, top 50 picks. Maybe they sneak into the first round. Guards tend to fall a little bit more, but early day two, those guys would be home runs for the Seahawks, who have pick 50 and pick 52. There could be an opportunity to get one of these two players with one of those selections in the second round. Behind those two, a name that I haven't talked about a lot to this point, Wyatt Milam from West Virginia, has been one of the highest graded zone blockers by Pro Football Focus the last 3 years. He has played a lot of snaps. He is going to slide into the guard position. He's played tackle for the most part at the college level, but I think this guy has enough athleticism. He's not quite the same athlete as, say, Ratledge or Jackson, but he has more than enough athleticism, and he is technically sound in the zone blocking game. He's been a really good pass protector as well. Milam is a player I think goes in the second round, maybe early third at the latest. He is right in that area where I think he's a little bit less in terms of overall upside compared to Jackson or Ratledge, but he is that next guy on the list. And a few guys here that I think in the third round could make some sense. Marcus Bowe from Purdue, he has played tackle. I think he is going to be best suited to play inside in the National Football League, though. A little bit shorter arms. He's got the lateral quickness you're looking for in a zone-centric scheme, has some nastiness finishing blocks to his game, has been a rock-solid pass protector. I think in the third round, Marcus Bowe makes a lot of sense for the Seahawks as a converted tackle. And I mentioned this the other day when we were talking Oregon. Josh Connerly, he was a tackle for the Ducks. I think he's got enough talent and athleticism to stay there, but I also could see him sliding inside to guard and being one of those tackles that projects as a pretty solid starting guard in the NFL. And sticking with Georgia, Dylan Fairchild, third rounder to me, not on the same level as Tate Ratledge, but another player with starting caliber upside at the guard spot, another player that's built his reputation as being a physical run blocker, but has enough athletic traits and smoothness in terms of his lateral quickness to be able to play in Clint Kubiak's scheme as well. Just rattled off 6 names right there. John Schneider, you got to go get a guard. This will be the opportunity to be able to do that in this draft class on day 2. It is a sweet spot at this position. Going to the defensive side of the ball, I think defensive tackle is the deepest position on day 2 in this entire draft. I'll cover that on our upcoming episode. But I want to start off at the edge position because to me, this is a sneaky need for the Seattle Seahawks. When you consider that Boye Mafe is a free agent this next season, Uchenna Nwosu just took a pay cut for this year, but he's got the same contract, final year of his contract for next year. If he's not healthy, which he might not be ready for the start of the season now with John Schneider dropping the bombshell that he had off-season surgery somewhere on his body. We don't know the specifics of it, but if he's not healthy or the production's not there, he might be gone. You're suddenly facing a future where you could just have Derek Hall and maybe DeMarcus Lawrence at 34 at that point. They need to look at the edge position, and luckily there's a lot of talent that I think will be there on day 2. To me, the headliners, Landon Jackson out of Arkansas at 6'6", 270-plus pounds. This guy had a 40-plus inch vertical jump. He's got freakish athleticism. He's not a bendy player. He's not going to be a guy that's going to be turning the corner quick, but he can win with power. He has some developed counter moves, and he's got positional flexibility at his size where you can move him up and down the line a little bit. He's got a frame he could grow into to be almost 300 pounds too, and still be a incredible athlete. So Landon Jackson, I think day 2, second round, that would be a great value. Princely Umanmielen from Ole Miss, another player that I really like going into this draft. Totally different than Jackson. He is a twitchy edge bender, flash flutter, as I like to call him, off the edge. The guy just in an instant, he gets on the quarterback. The sack numbers finally have been there the last couple of years. He started his career at Florida, finished up at Ole Miss. The Rebels have a lot of really good NFL prospects in this draft that I'm going to be talking about. But those two players, pick 50, could make a lot of sense. Pick 52 as well. I don't think they'll be there in the third round. I think these guys are clearly second-round talents. Much different skill sets. It depends what you're looking for, but either one of them would make sense in Mike McDonald's defense. As far as another couple guys I could see in the second round, Braden Swinson's not getting a ton of buzz right now. Didn't quite produce the way he thought he was going to at the NFL Combine in terms of athletic testing. Another player that's got underappreciated burst and bend off the edge, is an underrated run defender. I think he's a player that could be called in the second round, early third. Jared Ivey, sticking with Ole Miss, another dude that is built like Landon Jackson. We're talking a 280-pound edge that can play inside a little bit. There's inconsistencies with his pad level. Pass rush production has been hit and miss. He's more of a ball of clay, but teams take chances on guys like this in the second round, early third. If the Seahawks are looking for an edge in the third round, I think Ivey could make a lot of sense for them. As far as a couple other names to keep an eye on, David Walker is still being slept on. Had a great Senior Bowl coming out of Central Arkansas. This guy has an endless motor, really good athletic profile. I know he's played against FCS competition, but we see a lot of really good FCS players that turn into studs in the NFL. I can see David Walker being that next guy. He's got the goods as a pass rusher. He's physical in the run game. Kyle Kennard from South Carolina, another SEC player to keep an eye on in the third round. And Josiah Stewart, the links with Mike McDonald, at least from the standpoint, McDonald was the defensive coordinator for a year at Michigan. Stewart was on campus at that point. But Josiah Stewart is a player that at 254 pounds is not one of the bigger ends in this class, but he plays hard. He plays tough. He plays with that Michigan mentality. And I think there's some untapped pass rushing potential. To me, he is a mid to late third round, early fourth round caliber player. But because of those Michigan roots and just the style player he is, I think he could be valued more by Seattle than some other teams. But he just threw out a bunch of names there. And for those of you that are thinking Seattle does not need to draft a running back, I don't think they're going to be pulling the strings another one on day two. But we know who John Schneider is, and we know how much he loves this running back class. He made it clear at the Combine. And look, I'm a running back guy. So real quick, let's talk a few day two running backs that Seattle might consider if they fall. Caleb Johnson, to me, is running back number 2 in this class. I think that Marion Hampton from North Carolina is very close at 3. Most people have Hampton at number 2. I prefer Caleb Johnson's running style, his all-around skill set. Maybe not quite as explosive, but he's got incredible ball carrier vision. The dude slips through tackles left and right, and he's just a dangerous weapon out of the backfield. And then you look at Ohio State's duo, Quinshon Judkins, previously of Ole Miss, transferred to the Buckeyes, and Trevion Henderson, 2 slightly different style backs. Henderson's more of the home run hitter. Judkins dishes out the pop with his pads, breaks tackles, a sneaky good receiver. Both these guys have a well-rounded skill set. There were even some talks that maybe Trevion Henderson might sneak into round 1, but I've got second-round grades for both these guys. They are talented backs. There's no question about it. It depends what type of runner, what type of player that you are looking for, because they have some differences in their skill set, but both really well-rounded, talented backs that have had a lot of good experience against quality defenses at the college level. Those guys, to me, are second-rounders. When you're looking at day 2 values in the third round, DJ Giddens, in my opinion, is the most natural zone running back in this draft other than Ashton Jeanty. Ashton Jeanty is probably the most natural just running anything because he is that special. But DJ Giddens, for being 6'2", over 200 pounds, being a tall, bigger back, he is a glider. He slips through tackles. He's really good at reading cutback lanes on zone runs. I could see him making a lot of sense for Seattle in the third round. Cam Scatabo, you watch Arizona State, that's just a different player than DJ Giddens. He will surprise you with his quickness and his speed, but he's a punisher. He is a bulldozer. He trucks dudes. He also can throw the football on trick plays. He can catch the ball. Texas saw that in the playoff game against Arizona State when he had a receiving touchdown, a rushing touchdown, and a passing touchdown. The guy is an absolute freak. And yet he might not go till the third round because there's some reservations about his overall athletic profile. I don't have those reservations. I think that he is a very strong day two back that can do a lot of good things. And with his mindset, there's no way this guy couldn't play special teams and be really good at it at the next level. So Scatabo is a guy that I'm really excited about. And finishing things off, Basil Tootin from Virginia Tech. If you didn't know who this kid was, just turn on some ACC tape. Virginia Tech has been kind of down the last few years, but it hasn't been Tootin's fault. This guy is kind of reminding me of Maurice Jones-Drew. He is that shorter, squattier build, breaks a lot of tackles, explosive, incredibly explosive. He showed that at the combine, one of the best performances by any running back there in Indianapolis. Kind of has that pocket Hercules mentality like MJD did. I think he is a third-round pick in my book, but that could be a guy that can come in and start for a number of teams right now. That's the type of depth that this running back class has, which is why, again, if you're looking for value, best player available, Seattle may very well go down that road at some point in day two with 4 picks in the second and third round. When I return, I'm going to switch gears back to free agency. Look, I've talked the positives of the guard position because of the draft. But there's also a reality in free agency that's been frustrating fans. And I'm going to be taking a close look at where that frustration comes. And maybe I'm going to be putting some gasoline on the fire. We shall see here. But going to be talking free agent guards in a dwindling market coming up next here on our Blue Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the bracket breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
Welcome back to the Blue Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks. This is your host, Corbin Smith. A special thanks to all the 12s who are tuning in. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it. As I just discussed in the previous segment, this is a pretty good guard draft class. And so the world is not falling when you look at Seattle's interior offensive line. But at the same time, I completely empathize. I always mess this up. With fans on their feelings when it comes to the inability to land a big fish, a proven commodity. Now, John Schneider, to his credit, he absolutely tried to make it happen this year with Will Fries, and it boiled down to that physical that they were asking him to take before they would give him the contract and have him sign it, and he wasn't willing to do that. He had an offer from the Vikings. They didn't have that same physical demand, so he went to Minnesota on a 5-year deal. John Schneider was doing everything he could do to try to pull together a big deal for a guard there and upgrade the interior. But since that point, a lot of those frustrations from fans, they've boiled over again. And it's understandable because you consider the fact the Seahawks, to my knowledge, had 6 guards that were in the building over the last week. They have talked to a bunch of different guards at the VMAC. They have not signed a single one of them. They've let these guys come in and they've let them leave without a contract. And now that's resulted in 2 of those players, and it's probably going to be more when we get to the next couple of days here, but 2 of those players have already signed elsewhere. Teven Jenkins, the player that I felt had the highest ceiling of any of the guys that were still available. He's had some injury issues, but he goes to the Cleveland Browns. So that is going to create some interesting thoughts for me later in the segment. But nonetheless, Teven Jenkins goes to Cleveland. And then today, Lucas Patrick, who played for Clint Kubiak and John Benton in New Orleans last year and visited this past week with the Seahawks, reportedly is signing with the Cincinnati Bengals, another team that needs offensive line help. So now those 2 are off the board. Mekhi Becton is off the board. Chargers signed him last week. All the other big names are off the board for the most part. When you look at this guard market, it truly is slim pickings at this point. Brandon Scherff is the biggest name that is still out there, and he has still been a solid starter, but he is in his mid-30s now, and I don't think that he is a great fit, at least at this stage of his career, for what Clint Kubiak is wanting to do offensively. I think if we're looking 3 or 4 years ago, I think you could make a really sound argument for Brandon Scherf. I just don't know that the fit is there. I think you can make the same argument for Will Hernandez, formerly of the Cardinals as well as the New York Giants, who is more of a mauler, power blocking guard. That's when he's been at his best in college, when he was at UTEP and in the NFL. Not the dancing bear that excels in a zone-centric scheme. So, yes, he's a veteran. He's played in those types of schemes. I just don't see him being a great fit. And I think Shaq Mason at this point, if you asked me this 3 years ago, absolutely you go after Shaq Mason. But if the Houston Texans are releasing you, that's not a good sign. The Houston Texans had arguably a worse line than the Seahawks had last year. Mason at one point was a Pro Bowl caliber guard, has played some center. I don't see that player anymore, though. So it seems like that would be a real roll of the dice that could be an expensive one at this point of his career. As far as players that could be fits, Dylan Radins, who visited with the Seahawks last week, and he visited with the Saints yesterday. So he might be signing a contract in New Orleans or somewhere else, like Teven Jenkins did, like Lucas Patrick did. He's making his rounds around the league. Former second-round pick out of North Dakota State. He was really good in the zone blocking game when he was playing the guard position or the tackle position 2 years ago. In the guard position, because he's a little over 300 pounds, he's had his issues moving defenders. He's had issues dealing with the strength and power of interior defensive linemen in the National Football League. So I've questioned the fit with a lot of teams, but if the Seahawks are going to be running 70+% zone, then I think Dylan Radins makes a lot of sense for the Seahawks to at least take a flyer on. He's only 26 going on 27. He's had some decent seasons. Not great, but decent. And there's still room for him to improve as a player. And I don't think you're going to have to break the bank. See what these guys are getting. Lucas Patrick barely got $2 million for a year. Radins is not going to get much different of a contract, maybe a little more because he's younger, but I don't see him breaking the bank. This feels like the best player of the guys that are available right now. Seattle still wants to add somebody. Dalton Reisner makes some sense if you're looking for a veteran. He's never been a great run blocker. But he's a rock-solid pass protector, and he's played in zone blocking schemes. He played for the Vikings with Kevin O'Connell the last 2 years. So he's played in some similar schemes. If you're wanting to go for another cheaper player that has an incentive-laden deal, then I could see Dalton Reisner making some sense. And Tristan Colon, another former Cardinal, has played center and guard. Another player, if you're looking for a low-cost potential incentive deal for a guy that can play zone blocking schemes, I think that he's actually a better fit for Seattle's offense right now than what Will Hernandez is. I think Hernandez is the better player of the two, but you have to look at personnel and scheme fit, and I think Cologne would make more sense for what Seattle's running now. Hernandez would have been a better fit in Ryan Grubb's offense last season. I'm going to throw this out there before I sign off today, though. The Teven Jenkins signing, what is intriguing to me about that, the Cleveland Browns have two high-priced, talented guards on their roster already in Wyatt Teller and Joel Bitonio. I'm wondering, because of the Deshaun Watson contract and what that has done to their salary cap, I'm wondering if Cleveland's thinking about moving one of those two players. If that is the case, John Schneider absolutely should be on the phone. And look, I know Wyatt Teller is the one that injured Uchenna Nwosu last year. That would be a really interesting dynamic bringing him in. But Wyatt Teller can play football. He is a really good guard that has the athleticism to play in this scheme, and he can also knock guys off the ball. Joel Bitonio was still a really good guard. Maybe not an elite one at this point, but he's still a really good one. So either one of those players, withstanding the Teller-Nwosu relationship, you'd have to try to figure that out if you were going to make that deal. But I think Nwosu could be talked into it being okay because this guy could make this football team a lot better. So if Cleveland is actually going to consider moving one of those guys so that Teven Jenkins can play at one of the guard spots, I think Seattle's got to be calling saying, hey, maybe it's okay that we missed out on Teven Jenkins because now we can go get one of these guys. You're going to have to take on some salary, but Seattle's still got some cap space, especially after Nwosu taking the pay cut. So that is just something that I would keep an eye on. I'm not making a prediction there, but it is fascinating to me that Teven Jenkins is signing with the Browns, and there's this premise that he could play. if he's going to be playing, then that means something's got to happen with one of those guards that's in the starting lineup right now. And maybe Seattle might be inquiring about that, especially with the draft picks that they have, the surplus of day 2 selections. That might be a move that potentially could happen down the line. As always, you can follow me on X of Blue Sky at Corbin Smith NFL. Make sure to subscribe to Locked On Seahawks on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts to make sure you don't miss a single episode. Since I missed the Thursday show, had some stuff going on, there will be a Saturday episode of Locked On Seahawks coming your way tomorrow. And I'm going to take another deep dive into some positions that should be day 2 priorities for John Schneider, Mike McDonald, and company. Make sure that you're listening in and enjoy your weekend. Go Hawks.